Modern enterprise is made up of a lot of moving parts, and Comcast Business helps you orchestrate it all. With SD-WAN working at scale to keep 150 hospital locations connected and working as one. Plus, SASE and Zero Trust Security protecting financial data across a bank's 2,000 branches. And AI-powered networking that optimizes traffic across 5 continents. No one does business like Comcast Business.
There's a fire inside you can't ignore. Stand still? Not a chance. You're a lifelong learner who's come this far. Now, we're here to help you keep going further. Capella University. What can't you do? Visit capella.edu to learn more.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodie, and I am your host. We are recording this. I am recording this on a Thursday, sitting outside while my kids are doing martial arts, and it's been a good week, just a busy week. So I'm a little late in getting this out, but lots of good things going on, just taking a lot of time. So this episode's going to be a little different, just because, there's just like putting it together. I've just been piecing it here and there as I've been able to have a little bit of time to work through this. So keep that in mind. It might be a little bit shorter. I don't know. I tend to think that these things take less time to record than they really do. But in reality, I usually end up around 20 minutes. So as I'm sitting here watching through the window, the kids doing their jujitsu, my daughter was working with another kid, and that kid got up and he must have gotten hurt. So if I sound distracted, I just want to make sure it looks like he's okay. Anyway, moving on. We have a new Patreon supporter, and that Patreon supporter's name is Ben. Ben, thank you so much for supporting the show. I've had an opportunity to have a few interactions back and forth with Ben, so I really appreciate that he came over and decided to support the show. If you would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/kilowatt or supportkilowatt.com. And when you do that, if you go to supportkilowatt.com, you could choose to support either on Patreon or Supercast, however it makes sense to you. And I only ask for $1. So that will be the Patreon plug. I'll keep it real quick. Let's go ahead and dive into our EV news. Polestar, which is a Swedish company, they are owned by Geely, which is a Chinese company. And right now, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but the U.S. and Chinese relations aren't fantastic at the moment. I think it was under the Biden administration, they actually put a ban on Chinese connected cars in place, and the Trump administration left it in place. That's how I understand how this whole thing worked. But the ban includes any model year after 2027, so 2027 and beyond. Well, Geely owns Volvo. They also own, like I said, they also own Polestar. And Volvo is actually, we talked about this a few weeks ago, they actually received approval by the U.S. Department of Commerce to bypass this connected car ban. And Polestar did not get that same approval to bypass it. It doesn't sound like Polestar was like fighting it super hard, honestly. But so Polestar will no longer be able to sell cars here in the U.S. Doesn't mean they won't be able to sell cars elsewhere. Just here in the United States, after the 2027 model year comes around, they will not be able to sell cars. So it's 2026 and that's it. We will not see any 2027 Polestars in the US unless something crazy happens. Now, the interesting thing is the Polestar and the Volvo EVs, and Volvo and Polestar share a lot of the same DNA, and their infotainment systems, their connected car features, are built on Google built-in. So they're run on Google built-in, which is the same thing that Chevy's using and other automakers are using. So for Polestar not to get approval seems a little weird to me. If Volvo could get approval, it's not to say that they're exactly the same. Just because they're both built on Google built in, they can customize it here and there to suit their needs. So it may be that there's something different about what Polestar is doing versus what Volvo's doing. But because they're both owned by the same company, because they're both Swedish-owned companies, and I believe Volvo actually owns a portion of Polestar as well, there should be some communication back and forth to how they could make this whole connected car thing work. Now, it's not just the infotainment system that the U.S. government is looking at. It's the whole connected car and where it's phoning home to and all that other stuff. And so there's a lot to this that I'm oversimplifying. But what I really kind of want to point out is because they're both owned by the same parent company and they both are built on a lot of the same DNA, you would think that they would be able to figure that part out so that Polestar could continue selling cars here in the US. And if I had to think of why this is an issue, is maybe Polestars aren't selling that great here in the US anyway, and then they decided, you know what, this isn't a market that's going to work out, so why try? And that might be the case. I don't know, but I do think that it's interesting that Volvo was approved, Polestar wasn't. It is also interesting because Polestar has manufacturing plants in the United States. Not Polestar, I'm sorry. Volvo has manufacturing plants in the United States. And right now, there are some Polestars produced in the United States, but they're also coming out of China and Korea. So that might also play a factor in this. Like South Carolina plant is where they're building the Polestar 3. The Polestar 4 is primarily built in South Korea. And the Polestar 2 is typically coming out of China. So with that, I don't know. The bummer on this is that we're losing a really good EV car here in the United States, that people who own them love them. So that is a little bit of a bummer. But to celebrate the fact that they're ending operations in the United States, Polestar is discounting the Polestar 3 and the Polestar 4. At the moment, they don't sell the Polestar 2 in the United States anymore, just like they don't sell the Volvo EX30 in the United States because that's also built in China. But the discounts on the 3 and the 4 are pretty significant. It could be up to $23,000 for the Polestar 3 and up to $25,000 off for the Polestar 4. So if we look at this, a Polestar 3 now starts at $54,000. A Polestar 4, which is reviewed really well, now starts at $35,000. If you wanted to pick up an EV that was a really good value, this would be the time if you're interested in Polestar. Now, there are different terms and conditions you have to meet to get the $25,000 or $23,000 off the cars. So please go and do your research. But if you meet the conditions, that's a pretty good number. $35,000. We're looking at Chevy Equinox prices for $35,000, and a Polestar 4. I'm looking up the range here real quick. Yeah, the single motor Polestar 4 has got a range of 310 miles. If you're looking at a dual motor, it's 280,000 miles or 280 miles. It's got a range of 310 miles for single motor and a range of 280 miles for the dual motor. If you want the performance, you're only going to get at 255 miles. But still, $35,000 is a great price for that car. Okay. It's a new month. We're sitting on July 2nd as I record this, and in the new month, and it's a new quarter, and we usually start seeing delivery numbers. So I was going to talk a little bit about delivery numbers, and I'll pepper them in over the next couple of shows as we get more information. But Toyota sold 17,500 EVs. And my first thought, because I had just done a story, or I had just put in a story about NIO, which we'll talk about in a second. My first thought was that was how many they sold in June, and I was very impressed. And then I found out it wasn't. I'm still impressed because it's Toyota, but Toyota sold 17,500 EVs. That was for the first half of 2026. They have the Toyota Highlander coming. That's going to be all EV. They got some cool stuff coming in terms of EVs over the next year or two. So we'll see what happens with Toyota. But yeah, that's not a great number overall for 6 months for a car company as big as Toyota. But they're also, not really selling a lot of different EV brands. So they've really kind of put their efforts into this next series, which will start with the Highlander and so on. And then, and they have some newer, I don't know. I don't want to go too much into Toyota. Anyway, it's not just the Highlander. There's other stuff going on. Now let's move on to Rivian deliveries. Rivian delivered 12,194 vehicles in Q2 of 2026. That is up 14% year over year. So that's a great bonus. That's a great improvement for Rivian. Their initial guidance was they were going to sell or deliver between 9,000 and 11,000 cars over Q2 of 2026. So they certainly beat expectations. And Rivian is actually revised their delivery guidance. So initially they said they're going to deliver somewhere between 62 and 67,000 EVs in 2026. They are now saying they're going to sell or deliver between 65 and 70,000 vehicles. And I'm sure as Rivian as they kind of get on board with production on the R2, as that ramps up, I'm sure R2 is going to make up a decent part of that, 65,000 to 70,000 vehicles. So we'll keep an eye on it. Rivian, I think their earnings call is July 20th. So we will for sure cover Rivian's earnings call. This quarter, I don't think I'm going to do Ford and GM unless something crazy comes out of their earnings calls, because they just were not that interesting to me overall. So we'll cover Lucid and Tesla and Rivian. Oh, and just kind of a side note here, I didn't write this down, but Lucid is doing a big shakeup in the C-suite. They got a new CEO, and that CEO is making sweeping changes in the C-suite. So if we have time, in a future show and it's still relevant, I'll talk about that. But just keep that in the back of your head. Finally, NIO had a pretty good June. Sales were actually up for NIO 63% year over year. So NIO had a total of 40,597 deliveries in June. That is a fantastic number for NIO. If you're looking at how these deliveries were split up across NIO's 3 brands, so you have NIO, that's the main brand that they started with. They delivered 21,908 vehicles. And then you have the Envo, and the Envo has vehicles that are competing with like the Model Y. They're a little bit more money, but they're less money than, let's say, the NIO brand. Those, they delivered 11,743 of those vehicles. And then they had the Firefly, which is their most affordable brand. When I say their most affordable brand, when you compare the Firefly with like a BYD Seal, the Firefly is about twice the price. So they delivered 6,946 Fireflies, which honestly, I'm a little surprised about, because this is supposed to be their really affordable brand, their compact car. The plan was to sell them in Europe and, Australia and New Zealand and stuff like that. And they started production last year in 2025, like April of 2025, and they just really haven't taken off like I think they should have. Now, granted, this is almost 7,000 cars in a month, whereas Toyota is only delivered in the United States 17,000 cars. So, it's not in the first half of 2026. It's not nothing, but I would have expected them to have much higher sales of the Firefly. So I wonder what's going on there in the markets that they're selling that car.
Introducing America's Workforce Academy, built by Meta. Paid training, a job, and a path to America's future. Because the future is for everyone. Learn more at meta.com/America's Workforce Academy.
Shop the Sherwin-Williams 4th of July sale and get 30% off paints and stains June 26th through July 6th. Whether you're refreshing your interior or exterior, we've got the colors to bring your vision to life. And with delivery, getting everything to your door is easier than ever. Shop online to have it delivered or visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details. Delivery available on qualifying orders.
All right, let's move on to our Tesla news. And we're going to start off with Tesla's delivery numbers. Tesla had a fantastic Q2 2026 when it comes to production and delivery numbers. As a matter of fact, if you look at all of their quarters throughout the history of the company, this is the fourth best quarter they've ever had. So when you look at 2025, especially the latter half of 2025 and the first half of 2026, we had some down numbers for Tesla, and it looks like those numbers are starting to tick back up again in Q2 2026. So starting off with the production numbers, when we look at Model 3 and Model Y production, in 3 months, they produced 442,936 vehicles. They're, other than BYD, they're just eclipsing everybody in the EV market. And then when we look at other models, which include Cybertruck, Semi, and Model S and Model X, they produced 8,822. And that's a grand total of 451,758 vehicles produced in 3 months, which is just an amazing number.
All right, let's move on to our delivery numbers. And yes, I am in fact back in my studio. If it sounds different, it's because I'm back in my studio. So now delivery numbers, when we look at the Model 3 and the Model Y, they delivered 467,762 vehicles. That is just such an amazing number. In one quarter, they delivered what a lot of EV companies would love to deliver in a year, 1 quarter. And then when we look at other models, again, that includes the Cybertruck, the Semi, the S, and the X. And I would expect that we would have, a little bit bigger S and X sales, just simply because that was the end of an era with the S and X. They delivered 2,364 EVs total across all 4 of those vehicles. Let's see. And that gave us a grand total of 480,126 EVs delivered in Q2 2026. So pretty good. It's a hard one to, you can have a lot of bad things to say about Tesla, and sometimes I'm a little harsh on Tesla, but you just can't argue that they're a popular. They build a good car. It may not be to your liking, but they build a good car. It's relatively fairly priced, and people tend to like them. So yeah, Tesla's earnings call will be July 22nd at the end of the month here. So we will make sure to cover them as well. this next one's a bit weird. Since December of 2025, there have been somebody has stolen batteries from Tesla a minimum of 11 times since December of 2025. And it's not that they stole a couple of battery cells here and there. They stole whole battery packs, whole power walls in some cases. And it's just like in December they stole, excuse me, about $500,000 worth of batteries. And then that happened one time. They stole 2 full trailers. And then in January, that happened 9 more times they stole these trailers. So what had happened was the thieves exploited security gaps by using fake IDs, and they had, relationships with different Tesla shipping companies, and they were able to gain access through, different failed security protocols on Tesla's part and the shipping company's part to make these thefts pretty frequent. And, 2 full trailers of power walls in December, like I said, were totaled. That $475,000, that's insane. So what it looks like had happened is the freight broker that Tesla uses contracted the jobs to fraudulent carriers. And that's how, they were able to just drive away with trailers full of batteries. At the time that the article was written that I'm getting this from, there was 3 arrests made, and it does sound like, the authorities had put GPS trackers in the trailers and they were able to kind of track down at least some of the people who were doing this. But you would think, like, if you made your way in December of 2025, if you made it away with over $500,000 worth of batteries, obviously you're not selling those power walls anywhere, because Tesla, once they're activated, Tesla's going to be like, we know this is a stolen power wall. Where'd you get it? And they'll be able to track it back. But maybe they could take these apart and sell the modules or sell the individual battery cells, that kind of thing, right? But that should be where you stop. Doing this 10 more times, at least 10 more times, you eventually Tesla's going to catch on, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to let you steal something and we're going to track it and then we'll catch you. And that's what they did. So anyway, I thought it was a weird story. All right. FSD. Yeah, we have a new FSD version for hardware or AI3 vehicles. It is FSD version 14 Lite. So hardware 4 vehicles already have version 14. This is the lighter version. This is the not as full-featured version of FSD version 14 that hardware 4 vehicles have. This is actually the first FSD or major FSD update for hardware 3 vehicles in around 14 months. And it's not to say it's not their first update for the vehicle itself. It's the first FSD major update. And Ashok Alaswamy had this to say: FSD version 14 is now rolling out to AI3 early access customers. Based on the feedback, we'll roll out to more customers over the next few weeks. This build distills the driver behavior from AI4's version 14 series into both camera and compute config of AI3. It includes destination options, speed profiles on city roads, but more importantly, significant improved safety. We hope you'll enjoy it once it ships wide. The build ships wide. So in the release notes, this is what it says. Distilled intelligence from hardware 3 version 14 into hardware 3. It allows hardware 3 to directly learn how to handle scenarios using hardware 4 V14 as a guide. This process unlocks the improvements that have been made to hardware 4, including reinforced learning and offline models for hardware 3. So if I'm reading this right, it's basically we took the intelligence from AI or hardware 4 vehicles, and then we pass that down into hardware 3, and it can phone home based on and learn based on hardware 4 experiences, if I'm reading that right. It also improves both proactive and reactive response across a wide variety of categories, including navigation, handling, merging, forks, pedestrian interactions, traffic lights, and vehicle cut-in scenarios. Improved general comfort in nominal scenarios through fewer false slowdowns, smoother steering, and more consistent lane centering. That is fantastic. Introduced parking, unparking, and reversing capabilities. Unparking is a funny term. Added arrival options for you to select where FSD should park, whether that's going to be in a parking lot or on the street or in the driveway or on curbside. Speed profiles are now available to further customize driving style preference. This update is, in my opinion, pretty impressive, especially when you consider that hardware 3 or AI 3 has about 15% of the memory bandwidth that hardware 4 does. So we're definitely, constrained with hardware 3, and it sounds like they were able to take a lot of the features that hardware 4 had and bring them to hardware 3. Obviously, this is not where we need to be in terms of making it so that everybody can have a, level 4, level 5 experience with their car. But, it's a step in the right direction but until they can basically replace the hardware 4 computers or replace hardware 3 with hardware 4 computers, or AI 3 and AI 4. So yeah, I need to start saying AI. It's hard because we started off with the hardware nomenclature, and then they switched without telling anybody to AI, and they talked to people like they were dumb if they were saying hardware instead of AI. But really, like AI 3, let's just call it hardware 3, hardware 4. I don't like AI is something different. So anyway, whatever. That's what they're doing. This will, like Ashok said, once the testers, get it and start playing with it, and it rolls out to more people, it will be a wider rollout in the US, and then maybe the rest of North America, in terms of this being rolled out to EU countries, approved EU countries, China, South Korea, New Zealand, and Australia. That's probably going to be sometime in the future. And it's not going to be in the order that I just said it in, but I can't imagine that Tesla's going to roll this out across multiple countries quickly. I imagine this is going to take some time. So in the end, though, I have plenty of criticisms when it comes to Tesla, but I do think this is a step in the right direction. A little update. We talked about the car accident that occurred where a Tesla driver drove into a house in Katy, Texas, and killed a 76-year-old grandmother. The driver is being, he's going to trial for manslaughter. So just kind of FYI, just a little update on that. I mean, it doesn't mean he's going to be convicted of manslaughter. That just means he's going to trial. And then, we'll see what happens after that. Oh, you know what? There's a new Model Y. Is everybody aware of this? The Model Y L Premium, or the longer 3-row Model Y, is now available for sale here in the United States, or excuse me, it's available for pre-order here in the United States. And it is a little bit longer than a standard Model Y. And initially, they're only going to sell the Model Y L Premium, which is a 3-row car. So you'll be able to, it'll have 2 captain seats and then 2 seats in the back. So it'll fit 6, it looks like, comfortably. And, I don't know how much more comfortable this is going to be than like a Model X. It kind of looks tight back in the back seats there, but that's just based on Tesla's, based on their images. I'm trying to look and see what the overall length is 195 inches. And Tesla doesn't make it easy to compare here. Compare models. Oh, they do make it easy to compare. I'm just stupid. So we'll do the rear-wheel drive with the Model Y Premium all-wheel drive. All right. So we're looking at some significant pricing differences. I gotta make this bigger. If we're looking at the starting Model Y, that starts at $40,000, whereas the starting price of the Model Y Premium is going to be $62,000. Range is going to be 325 miles, 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. So that's not too bad. You're going to get 12-month trial of FSD versus when you buy a new Tesla now, you get a 1-month trial, and then it's $99 after that. More options to exterior colors. You get a couple of different wheel options. You can choose between all black premium interior or that really pretty Zen gray interior that we talked about a couple weeks ago. You get the extended range, or excuse me, the extended storage. The first row gets heated and ventilated seats. The seats, the 2 captain seats in the back have armrests that automatically go up and down. So that's pretty cool. Let's see here, 18-inch audio system, or 18 speaker audio system. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'd want to spend $61,000 on this car, but it's the initial rollout is the premium. So, I mean, it's pretty cool. I'm going to see if I can, does it show what the cargo space, you get 89 cubic feet in the premium versus 76 cubic feet just in the standard Model Y. Let's see how much longer this is. Model Y. Hold on. This is riveting, I'm sure. Scroll all the way down to the bottom. We are looking at 188 inches. So we're looking about 7 inches more in the premium Model Y L versus just the regular base model standard Model Y. So I don't know. I mean, depending on how you configured that 7 inches, there's a little bit of space. You can, if the seats were up, you could push those seats back a little bit further. So, and make it more comfortable for the people in the back seat. Interesting though. We'll see how people here in the U.S. Like it. All right, everybody. Well, that is it for me. I've blathered on long enough. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, you can email me. It's Bodie, BODIE at 918digital.com. Thanks again to Ben for signing up and becoming a patron. Sorry. Thanks to Ben for signing up and becoming a patron. And then one more thing. Oh, if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, it's Bodie Grimm, BODIEGRIMM. And that's pretty much the only social media that I'm halfway active on. But I do respond to my emails. Not always quickly, but I do eventually respond. So you can email me as well. All right, everybody, thank you so much. And our next episode will either be an interview or news. Probably news, and then the next one will be an interview. So I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I will talk to you soon.
Introducing America's Workforce Academy, built by Meta. Paid training, a job, and a path to America's future. Because the future is for everyone. Learn more at meta.com/America's Workforce Academy.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.